Welcome, and this time for another Bible study, or sermon rather. This time I'll be continuing my series on Solomon, the apostate man. This will be part two. Part one, we talked about how Solomon was a very wise man and how he made a lot of good decisions. He trusted in the Lord. He asked for wisdom early on in his life. However, as he got older, he became, spoiled. He went apostate and, got involved with a lot of things he shouldn't have got involved with. And he's a very good type of the modern Christian, in my opinion. Because you can kind of see that progression of how, especially American Christianity, how it's changed over time. And I strongly believe we are currently in that apostate condition. The American church is definitely in that condition. Probably other churches in other countries as well. So he had peace, but it ruined him. An idle mind ruins a lot of Christians. It unfortunately really does. Peace, prosperity, it just kind of like it just ruins us, unfortunately. And that's just reality. So you have to be kind of on your guard. You're a soldier as a Christian, and a lot of modern Christians don't seem to understand that concept that you are actually a soldier, and you are called into the Lord's army to serve Him. And there's some discipline to that, and that seems to be missing. That's not taught in a lot of churches. The fact that you are a soldier and there is discipline. As a Christian, it just lost. That concept's very much lost. Anyway, I could go a long time about that. How a lot of churches are social clubs these days. It's all about hanging out, and yeah, there's a time for that. But there's the go forth and disciple others, and that's kind of lost. That aspect, that discipline, and that growth, that spiritual growth aspect, is kind of lost. So yeah, I'd like to read some verses. So first I'm going to read 1 Kings 4:24. So 1 Kings chapter 4, verse 24, it says, "For he had dominion over all the region on this side the river, from Tifsa," I'm guessing it's Tifsa, "even to Asa, over all the kings on this side the river, and he had peace on all sides round about him." So, he had a very vast domain, and it was peaceful. It was calm. No issues, no trouble. Everything was great. Why? Why was it great? Well, yeah, Solomon had wisdom, maybe, but not everything is about you. The world doesn't revolve around us, and we can't, our decisions, even if we make all the right decisions, things can still turn out bad because we're at the mercy of the decisions of others, unfortunately. Those with power can make decisions that influence us. Well, yeah, Solomon had that power, but he was basically standing on the foundation laid by his father. His father put in all the hard work. David put in the hard work. That's why David had a relationship with God. David put in the hard work. He went through persecution. He went through troubles. David created that great kingdom through hard work, through the Lord's strength. And, he lived a good long life, but he had a lot of troubles. It was not easy. And he made some mistakes, and yes, he suffered for them. But, and there's a lot written about David. Solomon is just peaceful. There are no, you do read about Solomon. It does mention his reign, but not quite as much is written about Solomon as there is about David. There wasn't as much to say about Solomon. It was just a peaceful, everything was great. There's nothing to say. Just a peaceful kingdom. And that was because of David's hard work. That Solomon was blessed by that. Now Solomon put an effort to keep it that way. He wasn't picking fights and trying to expand it even further, getting all of that. He just kept things the way they were, the status quo. But yeah, that peace, it did spoil them. The size of the army shrunk during that time, and they weren't quite as on guard. So when trouble happened later on, they weren't quite as prepared. Um, so yeah, he had peace. He became idle, and unfortunately, that's kind of how we are as Christians. Um, yeah, and he had a large domain. He had a lot, And you have a lot of mega churches. They're large, right? They're peaceful. Are they doing the Lord's work? Maybe, maybe not. It's questionable. But yeah, those are the ones that fit in the best, right? The mega churches, because they're not trying to. They got that big because they are, appeasing the masses. That's why they got that big. If you put up some standards, some discipline, your church might not get that big. You know, uh, there's a reason. I mean, we could go into all the church history about the Catholic Church during Constantine's time and why Christians stopped getting persecuted and how that seemed like a good thing at the time, but then that caused a lot of false doctrines to enter the church and all that. That could be, like I say this often, but these little things I bring up, they could be their own the sermons and Bible studies that at some point I will bring up on. Church history is a very important topic, so that's definitely something I'll be covering at some point. So yeah, you just can't grow complacent. Solomon got complacent. We got complacent. Christians got complacent. So we fit in. That was basically what happened. Christians wanted to fit in with the world. This is why we have our current situation. We just got complacent. Too much wealth, basically. Too much luxury. Too many distractions. So yeah, that's literally just what happened. So when that happens, you're not like you're just not going to be as profitable. You're not going to be like a profitable servant. You've been spoiled, and yeah, that's what happens when you become idle. And it's not just Solomon. His dad actually. I just need to bring this up, but David also fell into a lot of sin because he was idle. Actually, I don't want to. Yeah, I do think I should bring this up. But his dad, he had a similar issue. That one day he decided to become, idle, not go to war. He saw Bathsheba, and he got into a lot of sin, a lot of problems. Just because of that one day, he decided. He got kind of lazy that one day. David got lazy one time and got tempted, and he had a bunch of problems just from that one mistake. That's how it is in life. You can make one really bad mistake that'll really mess you up. Yeah, like one really big mistake, and so yeah, he sinned with Bathsheba, and he lost this newborn son. And he had a lot of other problems after that. His sons were always at each other's throats after that. He had a lot of other, family turmoil and civil war that was started literally by, his own son. And interestingly enough, like I think this is actually slightly off topic, but Solomon is Bathsheba's son, and so if David had never sinned, if David had never done the wrong thing, Solomon actually would have never been born. So it's just kind of an interesting thought. But Solomon was only born because David sinned, because he made a mistake. But this just goes to show that God can use your mistakes and sins, things you did wrong, and somehow still turn them a little bit to make them right. That wasn't the Lord's initial intent. The Lord's will was for you to do something else. But even if you do go on the wrong path, God can still make it work. It just wasn't, originally what God intended. So I don't know who God originally intended to be king after David. But if David had never sinned with Bathsheba, then Solomon would have never been born. That's a fact. So, just kind of like this little thing I brought up on the side here, but that is true. God can Um, just because, you make one mistake doesn't mean God's done with you. He can still use you, and he can still, use your mistakes in some beneficial way, for you in the future. So, yeah, anyway, let's bring up, one more verse. Let's see. Let's Proverbs chapter 6. Yeah, Proverbs chapter 6. Let's do that. Proverbs chapter 6, verse 10. 6, 10, and 11. And this is kind of what I was talking about earlier with the, getting lazy. Yet a little sleep, a little slumber, a little folding of the hands to sleep. So shall thy poverty come as one that travelleth, and thy want as an armed man. So that's what happens. You get a little lazy, sleep a little bit, get a little tired, and before you know it, you're poor, and you just don't know what happened. Everything just falls apart just because you had one bad day. And that's true. I can tell you, like, if you have a disciplined schedule, stick with it. If possible, if you take one day off from your disciplined schedule, whatever you're doing, your Bible reading, you're praying, maybe some other, just maybe going to the gym or something, and you have a schedule, and you just take one day off, then just be really careful, because it's really easy if you just take one day off to just get lazy and not come back. It's so easy. Like I just know personally from experience that just taking one day off, you can it can ruin everything. So if you have a schedule, just stick with it if possible. I mean, unless you have like a really good reason. But you need to, if you're going to take a day off, you need to mentally prepare yourself. Okay, I'm taking this day off, but I am definitely coming back to whatever this thing is that I'm doing. So you need to mentally, it's all mental, it's all in the mind. And because if you don't prepare yourself mentally, it's very easy to just fall into this cycle of just getting at, like, just losing your discipline completely. And very important to do that, to prepare yourself, because any discipline you have, reading the Bible, praying, skills, various things you're doing, it's just so easy to lose it, because some of us have amazing willpower. I don't. I know a lot of people don't, and so that's why discipline is super important. You need to, you just need to tell yourself, I'm going to do this. You need to be structured and organized. And if you just kind of flow along with everybody, if you just go with the flow, do what everyone else is doing, you will not be the kind of Christian God wants you to be. You're going to be different, basically. If you're going to be disciplined, if you're going to be a disciplined Christian, reading the Bible, praying, you will stand out. You will not be like other people. It's going to be different. Okay, if you're going to be like everyone else, you'll get the same results everyone else is getting. You'll just be some regular Joe, basically. Anyone that achieves any kind of amount of success, definitely put in the time and the effort. And this isn't just from a spiritual perspective, as a Christian, but even for, like, if you talk to any entrepreneur that is successful, any businessman, they put in a lot of effort. You only see them rich. You see the end results of all their hard work, but you don't see the behind the scenes, like how much effort they put in to get that far. So any time you see, like, even if a good church, a good preacher, a good pastor, that they put in a lot of work, and it's not always evident on the surface how much effort they put into what they do. And so, yeah, you only see the results, like, wow, these people really know what they're doing. But no, they put in a lot of time and effort to get to that, to get that far. So if you're going to be, during times of peace and idleness, and it's easy to be lazy and not to put in the hard work. It is during those hard times, persecution and trouble, that forces people to step up their game. And that's kind of what happened to Solomon. Early on, he was like, he said, I'm a new king. I need God's help. I want to be a great king. And he prayed, and he was humble. And Solomon lost that. Solomon lost that attitude. He got probably lifted up with a bit of pride over time, and he just got lazy. Everything was just too easy. No need to put him. He had the wisdom, the knowledge. Everything was just easy. easy to slack off. That's why some of the the smart students in school, they'll slack off because they're like, oh, this is easy, and then they'll get lazy, and then they'll never build up a work ethic because everything's easy. If everything's easy, then you're never going to build up a work ethic. That's the problem with like genius kids. The ones that do build up a work ethic and are smart, those are the ones that get really amazing results, obviously. But it's very easy to get lazy when it's like, oh, everything's easy. I don't have to work hard. Everything's just handed to you, right? That's basically what happened to Solomon. So I think he's just a very good type of the modern Christian, as I've said before. So, yeah, you're just gonna get caught off guard. If you're not, you need to be prepared. Even in times of idleness, when it's easy, you need to be prepared. So also, yeah, I think I'll move on to my next point. That Solomon became a vain man, and you can see that in Proverbs. He's given a lot of wisdom. Later in his life, in the book of Ecclesiastes, you can kind of start to see where he is kind of developing sort of this like this negative attitude towards life. He's very pessimistic, and he almost sounds like an atheist, actually, in the book of Ecclesiastes. He's saying everything's vain, everything's pointless, nothing makes sense, everything's dumb. Like, that's what happens. That's what happens when you get away from God. So first, so he became a vain man. Let me read the book of Nehemiah. So Nehemiah chapter 13. Let's see here. Yeah. So yeah, Nehemiah chapter 13. Where is Nehemiah? Did I miss it? I keep missing it. Oh yeah, there it is, Nehemiah. Okay, Nehemiah chapter 13, verse 26. Nehemiah 13:26. Did not Solomon, king of Israel, sin by these things? Yet among many nations was there no king like him, who was beloved of his God, and God made him king over all Israel. Nevertheless, even him did outlandish women cause to sin. Very interesting verse. I mean, this is talking about how to give you the context, the Israelites were taking these like foreign women at the time, and they were kind of their culture was changing, and they weren't they were losing that connection to God because they were mixing in with the Gentiles. And that's actually what happens when you as a Christian, you are supposed to be like in the world, right? But you're not supposed to let the world corrupt you, right? You're in the world. You can have friends that are in the world and not Christians. That's totally fine. But if they are changing you, you are becoming less of a Christian, farther away from God, then those are not friends you should be having. If you're as a Christian, you're influencing them, great. But if you're being influenced negatively and becoming less of a man of God or woman of God, then that's not good, right? Anything that's hindering you from serving the Lord is not good. It's sin. So anyway, this is basically what was going on here. And so here he's saying even Solomon, who is this like genius king, beloved of God, blessed by God, still sinned with these outlandish women. Because Solomon, at the end of his life, he had like, what was it, 300 wives, 700 wives, 300 concubines. That's just ridiculous. Why? I mean, it's just obscenely ridiculous. Like, you would think like a few wives would already be considered a lot, but this was like, yeah, I can't even explain this logically why this happened. Like how much of a sinner and like how a jerk do you have to be to get to that point? Like, I really don't know how to explain it any other way. Like, Yeah, it's like there's really no way to explain that. Like I'm trying to think of the most um, sinful people I know in existence. I don't know if maybe they're that bad, you know, like some playboy that slept with like 1,000 different women. I don't know, like even the average loser jerk uh, isn't that bad. Like but this is only because he's the king. He can get away with this. The average person never gets to that extent. So this just shows like this is basically celebrity status. You have to be a celebrity to be famous and rich to get to a point where you are that bad. You're living that amorally. Only like a king basically can get away with to that extent. Can be that bad. Um, so this is what happened to Solomon, who is supposed to be a genius, like wise, intelligent, like serving God, and he ends up like that. Any Christian, basically, this goes to show like nobody's immune. Any Christian can end up in this sinful condition. It doesn't matter. There is no sin that you are immune from. Like literally, let me repeat that. There is no sin that you are immune from. So if you go to some Christian super conservative church that believes that they're immune, like there's no way, like if you ever fall that far, there's no way you were actually saved. No, you could totally be saved. You could totally be saved and end up like that. Easily. Solomon ended up like that. Lots of Christians ended up like that. If you read the Bible, you will realize that God's men that he called were not always paragons of virtue. Not always. A lot of times they weren't. Some fell in small ways, some fell in big ways. Now, I will say this thing about women causing them to sin. Like literally everybody, like just about every guy falls from that. Like nobody's immune. Even the best men in the Bible had a weakness to women. Like David, Solomon obviously followed in his dad's footsteps, even much worse than his dad's footsteps. The only man that was immune from that was Joseph. That's the only like account in the Bible of a man saying no. Like literally the only person. And that's actually because one of the reasons I believe this is the case, because Joseph is actually a very good type of Jesus Christ. This has been brought up by many scholars, how there's a lot of parallels between Joseph's life and Jesus's life. So he's actually the best, one of the, like probably the best picture of Jesus Christ in the Bible is actually Joseph. The best human, like the best man, like his life mirrors Jesus's the best. And it just shows because his level of behavior is just, one step higher than a lot of the other prophets, or men that God called. And so that's it. Other than Joseph, like every other guy, like it always shows some kind of weakness. Not just other sins, but like specifically women. So he's saying even here, it's like even Solomon, like the greatest, the greatest king ever, God loved him and he still sinned like this. So nobody's immune. So you're not immune from sin. Don't play with sin. Run from sin. Joseph ran from sin. You're not immune. Your ability to fight sin is a lot weaker than you realize. It is incredibly fragile. Don't mess around with Satan. Don't try to fight Satan. Don't think you're smarter than Satan. You can resist Satan. You can't. You will fail, guaranteed. You will not last for very long. So do not try to fight him. You ask God for strength. Know that you are weak, that you're flesh. You need strength, and that's it. So that's why I am very hesitant to really criticize people for their sins. I will say this is a sin. Like if someone's a alcoholic, I'm going to say, yeah, you're sinning. I'm not going to say, like, I'm not going to ignore that. But I'm very hesitant to spend a lot of time criticizing people for their sins because I understand people are weak and they fall in sin. So that doesn't excuse the sin. It doesn't excuse the sin, but always realize that that could have been you. You could just as easily be in the shoes of this person you are criticizing for their sin. So just be a little careful. Show some grace. Try to understand what people are going through. But at the same time, give them God's word. also. Um, so, you know, the sin needs to be repented of. It needs to be changed. You want to grow, obviously. Um, and, you know, you want to use wisdom with that, obviously. But just know that you're not immune from sin. You could easily be in someone else's shoes that fell into some grave sin. So just be very careful with that, with, you know, your words. So you want to give the counsel of God, the counsel of God with love. That's very important. So anyway, so this Nehemiah. So even Solomon sinned. He fell over. He fell into this lust, and he just kept getting worse. Also, yeah, let me read in Ecclesiastes. Let's see, Ecclesiastes. Actually, yeah, let's leave that for next video. So yeah, we're doing pretty good. Yeah. Anyway, so I think I'm gonna do one more video to wrap everything up. I don't want to make these too long. Usually keep them like 20 to 30 minutes, you know, to break them up. So it's not super long. But yeah, so I'll see you in the next video where I finish this up. The sermon on Solomon, the apostate man, and his how he's a good type of the modern Christian. See you next time.